Hello, I'm Kaiser and welcome to Moose Reads. Before I get started, I want to say that the opinions that I give here are my own opinions. They are extremely subjective. If I dislike a book, it is not a reflection on the author, and it is not a reflection on people who do like it. Different people have different tastes, and that's okay. Today, I will be doing my May wrap-up. In May, I read 5 books. These books totaled 1,848 pages, with an average of 370 pages per book and 60 pages per day. There should be chapters marked so you can easily skip around. At the start of May, my brother and I were still working through the Murderbot Diaries audiobooks. I've reviewed these before, so if you're interested in my opinions, you can go check out that video. The basic gist is, I adore this series, and I give it 5 stars all around. After that, for my book club, I read The Honey Witch by Sidney J. Shields. This is a fantasy romance. The description says, 21-year-old Marigold Claude has always preferred the company of the spirits of the meadow to any of the suitors who've tried to woo her. So when her grandmother whisks her away to the family cottage on the tiny isle of Innisfree with an offer to train her as the next Honey Witch, she accepts immediately. But her newfound magic and independence come with a price. No one can fall in love with the Honey Witch. When Lottie Burke, a notoriously grumpy skeptic who doesn't believe in magic, shows up on her doorstep, Marigold can't resist the challenge to prove to her that magic is real. But soon, Marigold begins to care for Lottie in ways she never expected, and when darker magic awakens and threatens to destroy her home, she must fight for much more than her new home, at the risk of losing her magic and her heart. 3 stars. This was a book club book, and it was fine. Marigold kind of annoyed me because she was extremely judgmental without any real basis, but the book constantly affirmed her assumptions about everyone she met. It wouldn't have been so bad if Shields had thrown in a line about that being part of a Honey Witch's magic, but she didn't, so it just frustrated me. There's also an antagonist in this book who is mentioned early, has almost no presence throughout the book, and then becomes the primary focus of the climax. Pretty much everything surrounding this character was poorly explained and poorly executed, and I wish Shields had just left her out entirely. I don't think it would have been that hard, and it would have forced Marigold to figure out how to deal with her curse on her own, as opposed to how it was actually handled. The relationship was fairly cute. It ramped up fairly quickly, though not as quickly as another relationship in the book, so it looked better by comparison. After that, I picked up A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. This is the first book in the series of the same name. It is a fantasy novel. The description says, You, dear reader, continue at your own risk. It is not for the faint of heart, no more so than the study of dragons itself. But each study offers rewards beyond compare. To stand in a dragon's presence, even for the briefest of moments, even at the risk of one's life, is a delight that, once experienced, can never be forgotten. All the world, from Skirlin to the farthest reaches of Erica, know Isabella, Lady Trent, to be the world's preeminent dragon naturalist. She is the remarkable woman who brought the study of dragons out of the misty shadows of myth and misunderstanding into the clear light of modern science. But before she became the illustrious figure we know today, there was a bookish young woman whose passion for learning, natural history, and yes, dragons, defied the stifling conventions of her day. Here at last, in her own words, is the true story of a pioneering spirit who risked her reputation, her prospects, and her fragile flesh and bone to satisfy her scientific curiosity, of how she sought true love and happiness despite her lamentable eccentricities, and of her thrilling expedition to the perilous mountains of Bistrana, where she made the first of many historic discoveries that would change the world forever. 3 stars. Temeraire left me in the mood for dragons, and I found out somewhere in the middle of reading that this was on Kindle Unlimited, so I had easy access to it. Unfortunately, this book just isn't what I wanted. Don't get me wrong, I think that for what it is, it's quite good, but what it is dragons as more or less regular animals that the main character is studying, and it turns out I don't care for that. I very much want my dragons to be intelligent creatures with active roles in the story. Because it's not really the kind of story I'm looking for, I wasn't wild about it, and I don't have any plans to read on in the series. Still, if you don't mind dragons just being wild animals, you might enjoy this more than I did. And lastly, I read Ascendant by Michael R. Miller. This is the first book in the Songs of Chaos series. It is a fantasy novel. The description says, Holt Cook was never meant to be a dragon rider. He has always served the order hall of the crag dutifully, keeping their kitchen pots clean. Until he discovers a dark secret. Dragons do not tolerate weakness among their kin, killing the young they deem flawed. Moved by pity, Holt defies the order, rescues a doomed egg, and vows to protect the blind dragon within. But the scourge is rising. Undead hordes roam the land, spreading the blight and leaving destruction in their wake. The dragon riders are being slaughtered, and betrayal lurks in the shadows. Holt has one chance to survive. He must cultivate the mysterious power of his dragon's magical core, a unique energy which may tip the balance in the battles to come and prove to the world that a servant is worthy after all. 4 stars. This was more in line with what I was looking for, and I enjoyed it quite a bit, even if I read it in what's looking more and more like a reading slump. There are some things I'm not wild about in this book and series. Even in the scene where Holt pushes back against what amounts to dragon eugenics, it has kind of mixed messaging. And the further the series goes on, the more it feels like the lesson is they shouldn't kill those eggs because of what they might do for them, rather than because it's morally wrong. Holt, however, does rescue the egg strictly because he thinks killing eggs is wrong, so he at least is doing the right thing, even if his ability to do the right thing is severely limited. I also got confused fairly early in this book. I don't know if it was my failure to grasp the setting or Miller's failure to properly introduce it before it became necessary, but it certainly threw me for a large chunk of the book. See, the Scourge sort of wax and wane in their activity levels, and they've been increasing lately. They're apparently drawn to humans, so the solution is to pile everyone in the capital where they can best defend and concentrate their forces. So early on, the senior writers are called to the capital. But the writers are a nominally apolitical body that spans multiple countries, and I didn't really understand if they were summoned to the capital of their country or the primary home of their order, because I hadn't quite grasped that those were not the same. Again, maybe it was just me, but the confusion meant that for half the book I didn't understand where those writers were supposed to have gone, which made some later events much more confusing as well. All the same, I liked it, and intend to read the rest of the series. That's all the books I read in May. If you like this video, I hope you'll watch more in the future. Thanks for watching this one. Bye!